So I'm hoping this little setup is going to help you with the quadratic formula, because I've had several kids in the past that stress out. There's too many variables going here, there, and everywhere. So we're going to use this and hopefully it will help. So before you can actually use the quadratic formula, just like before you could solve for the discriminant, my equation must be equal to 0. Right now, my equation is equal to -4. So I need to move the -4 to this side of the equation. When it moves across that equal sign, what happens? It changes signs. So my equation's 3x squared minus 4x, because they didn't move, and then plus 4 equals 0.
So is that how all the problems are set up?
Yes.
Oh, you have to do that because it doesn't have x. Like
Must.
you do +4 and then +4 and then
Because right, because they're not like terms. Must be equal to 0.
I already screwed up on that a little bit.
Okay. Must be equal to 0. I cannot stress that enough. If you put in a -4 instead of a positive, your answer will be wrong. It has to be equal to 0.
I know, thank you.
I'm going to scooch this up just a little bit. All right. Scoochy, scoochy.
That's my favorite word.
Your favorite word is scoochy?
Yeah, because it's just funny. It sounds like scoochie.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. Once you have it equal to 0, what number is front of my squared term?
-4.
In front of my
3.
squared
3.
term. 3. So that is my A value. My A value is 3. What number is front of my X? -4. And then +4. So you need to identify, once it's equal to 0, identify your A, B, and C.
I swear.
Okay. Now we're going to use the discriminant to decide how many solutions I have. So same thing like we did yesterday. B squared, so -4 squared, minus 4 times my A times my C value. Make sure, if you notice, they put parentheses here for you. You have got to put it into parentheses. You said -52.
What is that? I got -52.
You have to put the parentheses. I got -32.
Read it how you typed it in.
I got you.
Parentheses, -4, parentheses, -4, parentheses, 3,
Did you put the,
parentheses.
Did you square it?
Yeah, square it.
Oh,
Yeah, you right.
yeah,
It's
right.
okay.
She says, yeah, you're right.
Okay, what is it?
You said it's -32?
We be trying to rush. I was gonna be on -32. I forgot that's -4. What did you say? I always forget to square.
Yes, negative.
Okay, so -32 means I have what?
No,
No real solutions,
Imaginary solution.
which is 2 imaginary solutions. If they're not real, they're imaginary.
That kind of confused me.
Why would you say that?
Are they? But are they?
Yes, because now we're going to have, I'm bringing I.
People say ghosts aren't real, but ghosts are.
Shut up.
Wait, what?
There are ghosts at my
Okay,
house.
so now, once you have your discriminant, okay, once you have your discriminant, we are now going to plug into the quadratic formula to actually solve this now. I actually picked a really, really bad example. I don't want imaginary solutions. Jeez Louise.
Okay, you can't get that.
Yeah.
Well, imaginary solutions are harder, right? If it has an imaginary solution.
No, technically they're easier. All right. So we're going to do this anyway, because then I got more examples. Okay. So when I substitute into the quadratic formula, it's -b. Okay. Well, when I plug in my b, it's negative already. So what does that double negative do?
Positive.
Makes it a positive. That's why this says opposite B. If it's negative, it's positive. If it's positive, it would be negative. Okay? Underneath the square root is that value you got for your discriminant. So negative 32. And then in the bottom, all over 2 times A. And your A is 3. If you notice, they've got the little letters on what goes where and how to do it. Okay? This is why I told you that you needed to pick up one of these dry erase boards. Because I have put one of these in it. And as we practice today, you can use this
You're smart.
to fill stuff in.
I like you.
This is why I bought these.
I like you. You're smart.
I bought them off of
I'm trying
Amazon.
to get
I don't
They-
know what a square root is.
But am I really confused?
I might catch you once we do a couple more examples. It might just be too much
Okay,
right now.
So B,
I found it.
so that's just the regular B?
Yeah, because, so your quadratic formula, Molly, is negative B. So when I plug in a -4, that double negative
Equals
makes it a positive. That's why it says opposite B.
So where did you get double negative?
From the B at the top.
From the
That's
actual,
already negative. So where you get the other
your
negative?
B's already negative, and when my formula is negative B, when I substitute in a negative, it becomes a positive.
Okay.
But if I had it this way and I was substituting in a positive, it's a negative.
So this, wait, I'm so confused.
Because the equation is already negative.
So we have to turn it to a.
Your full
I don't know why.
equation is
I just
negative
know it
B plus or minus the square root of B
Oh,
squared
'cause you got
minus
negative
4AC.
B.
all over 2A. So your B is already negative, so when I put in a negative, it makes it a positive. If I put in a positive, it actually keeps it as a
Hold on, can I
negative.
take a picture of that? 'Cause that-
Absolutely.
That just blew my mind.
What time? So these already
Send that to
negative?
me. So I don't
Your
forget.
formula makes
Like,
it
I swear to
negative.
God, like-
But then when I put in a negative, it makes it a
So
positive.
what is that plus and minus mean?
Give me a second.
Let us get
Y'all
to that.
are way too ahead of the game.
How do you?
Yeah.
If you're still doing-
Miss Smith, I'm so glad you are my teacher because I
Did I fix everybody on that and why it turns positive? Thing with your B value,
is that always?
always, okay? If this is a perfect square, you would do a perfect square, okay? If not, it's gonna give you a decimal. Try plugging this in right now, though. What's the square root of -32?
Where's square root?
Yes, sir.
Second, and then your square button.
Okay.
Negative 30.
You have to put a parentheses.
You don't have to close it
It
off.
says non-real answer.
Yeah,
It says non-real answer.
Oh, yes.
You cannot take the square root of a negative number, which is why you get 2 imaginary solutions.
Whoa!
Oh
I had a question.
Mind blown!
So technically you have to go through numbers.
So look,
So technically, you don't what?
if you fi-
Oh, we've got to finish it.
if you figure out that the discriminant is
Negative
negative
B.
B, still do this.
Oh,
Yes.
probably messed up.
Okay,
here.
that was-
Okay, so listen. We could technically get into some hardcore stuff, but we don't need to get that depth into it. So all I need you to know is when you take the square root of a negative number, that negative becomes I.
Positive. Oh. I.
I stands for imaginary.
I always wondered. Right.
So we pull out that negative and make it I, and you keep the square root of 32. So your negative becomes I, and you keep the square root of 32.
And I is
When do we,
I means you have an imaginary number.
One put I square root negative 32 or you put
Why
I
would
square
we
root
put
negative?
negative? Because the I technically.
The I became, your negative became I.
Oh, okay.
So that's why
So
you
it's
get
not-
Would
rid
you
of
always
it.
put
It's not
negative
negative
outside
anymore.
of the square root?
Huh?
Would you put the negative outside square root if you were doing negative?
Because I
The
is,
bottom one's still 3.
no. Your bottom is 2a, so it's 2 times 3, which gives me 6.
Yeah, I don't
Wait.
know.
Cause you're simplifying.
You're simplifying. In the
Making
bottom,
everything
I've
simpler.
got 2
So the A is
and
just
3.
nothing. So the A is just.
So the A is 3. So you do 2
Your
times
a is
3.
3, but your formula is 2 times a.
Okay, I
So
thought
when
the A like meant like you gotta.
No, a is the number that you're putting in. Okay. All right. So now y'all are like, well, what the heck do I do? How do I plus minus what? Huh?
Seriously.
Okay,
It's
so
harder now.
all that happens here is we now break this into 2 different answers. We have x equals 4 plus I square roots of 32 over 6 is your first answer. This is your first solution. Your second solution then is 4 minus I square roots of 32 over 6.
I thought it was gonna be something like, you know.
Ridiculous.
No, that's it.
That's crazy.
At the end, you just split it up.
That's
Yeah,
still
it's the
hard.
second
That's still hard.
And that's your second solution.
Not hard.
Okay, because this is imaginary, this is all the farther you can go with this.
Oh, so there's more you.
Oh, if it's not imaginary, it's more to it.
If it's not imaginary, we plug these in and actually get answers.
Oh.
Hold up.
What time you
That
put-
is
Not that hard. Chill.
you put ice in that place?
Right,
No.
you put yeah, I'm lost now.
That's why I said this is all the farther you can go
Oh, but
when it's
another-
imaginary.
Oh, another one.
Miss
Okay.
Smith, my mom told me to ask you what's the B.
Wait. Your mind told you to ask me what the.
Her mom.
My mind.
Oh.
No, she said
I
mind.
thought you said mom
I thought
too.
you said mom.
I thought she said mom. I was like,
Oh,
what did you do? Right.
My
I'm
mind
sorry.
said, told me to ask you.
Your mama had
What's
might
the
have to
beef?
get beat up.
Oh,
I don't know what's the beat.
or Smith.
My bad.
I'm
Do
confused.
you want this back?
She makes my head hurt.
Not with Miss Smith though.
No, Miss Smith, you make our hair.
Sweet.
It's okay. She says.
My mama said, well,
Okay. Do me a favor and get out this one.
Get out that way.
And we're going to start here.
Wait, what would you put in?
Oh, that's just, you could have put that there. So we did it up there.
Wait, what you put here?
Not too much crap about them.
6.
This is really. I'm messing with my.
Messing with your OCD. Oh, gosh.
I hate having too much stuff on my desk.
This is just that you
Listen,
don't have to do this.
Clear it all off but this piece of paper right now.
Okay.
That's all you need
But
right
I
now.
can't figure out like,
Under your desk.
But let me put it.
There's an empty desk behind you. Set it on top.
Or you can put it on my desk because I don't even sit there.
God's lolly.
This is just a way you can pick, right? You don't have to do this upstairs.
Yes.
Like this is just a way. This is the way you can pick. You don't have to. You don't have to know.
No.
Because I'm not picking this. Definitely picking the particular away.
Okay.
Sometimes it says error though.
So,
Anyways.
first things first. Is my equation equal to 0?
Yes.
Yes. So, now. And what is C? -8. Okay, I need to find my discriminant. My discriminant says B squared minus 4 times A times C. So we plug in a -2, we square it, we subtract 4, we multiply times 1, and we multiply by -8. Somebody get me an answer.
-2 squared minus 4. Got a 1.
Wait, I have a question. So you know how we
And
use
a
the whole
negative.
formula? How would you know which
I can do it wrong.
36.
You said 36.
I got -28. My fingers are
I
too
put
big.
parentheses.
Y'all
Did you put the
tripping.
-2 in parentheses when you squared it?
Did you put the actual?
That's
Yes, I did. Did you put the negative 4?
That's
Did
why
you
you
put
got
the
it wrong.
square?
You're not supposed to have it.
Do that.
So you don't put the square.
I got 36.
No, you put it on the outside.
Let me see yours.
You put on outside.
Yeah.
You didn't do -8, you did
So I make sure
positive.
I did it right.
Look at you. It's okay. We love
Yes,
you.
outside. Yes.
Well, either
Outside.
we did it wrong or we did it right.
Period.
Okay. Anybody else not get 36 that needs me to come look at it and figure out why? Okay, so you should have gotten 36. What's that mean?
You have two solutions.
2 real solutions. So we're actually going to end up with 2 numbers. 2 numbers. Okay. So my quadratic formula says I need to take the opposite of b. So we've got 2 plus or minus the square root. Inside my square root is my discriminant. So this goes here. All over 2 times 1. 2 times a.
Excuse me. Who would ever
So you wait.
So basically, the 2
Plus or minus.
x.
What is the square root of 36?
How do we know that that's
6. How do we know that that's what?
I figured out my problem. I was just being dumb.
Divided by 2. Because 2 times 1 is 2. Now we split it into the 2 answers that we need. So I've got 2 plus 6 divided by 2.
And then you got
And I've got 2 minus 6 divided by 2. Well, what's 2 plus 6?
8.
Divided by 2 is
4.
4.
When we get the answer.
2 minus 6 is -4. Divided by 2 is
My twos look like these.
not necessarily.
Not
Most of the time.
necessarily.
No.
Okay. You just found out where this graph crosses the x-axis.
Whoa!
It crosses, these are your x-intercepts. It crosses at +4 and -2.
That is crazy. For real. I'm not doing all of that. So that's our answers?
That's your answers.
4 and -2?
4 and
Is this
-2.
some way? Is this some way to find a slope? I mean, I'll find that axis of symmetry. Now looking at this, divided by 2 or something.
-b over 2a will give you your x value and tell you where your axis of symmetry is. Technically 2. Okay, so 4 is here and -2 is here. Where's the halfway point?
Almost failed.
So, Bobo said, is there a way to find the axis of symmetry here? Okay, so yes, I've got 1 at +4, 3, 2, 1, 0. This is your, and then we've got 1 at -2. Where's that halfway point?
1. Can you draw the
X
parabola?
equals 1 would be your axis of
Can you
symmetry.
draw the parabola?
Yes, the parabola would go something like this.
Thank you.
Dirty what?
Good job.
Hold up, I'm gonna draw that.
Where's the answer?
Yeah, that was for
So -2. And then we got 1, 2, 3,
Okay.
4.
Before we continue on, I want to do this. You ready for mind blown?
Yep.
Got you. I'm totally good at blowing minds here. All right. So, x squared minus 2x minus 8. Let's factor this. So we've got x squared and -8. So I need 2 numbers that multiply to give me -8 squared.
4 and 2.
2 and 4. -4.
2 and 4, which one's negative?
4.
The 4 is negative. So we've got -4x and +2x.
X.
Okay, I can pull out an X,
Negative
4. X.
Negative
2.
two.
No,
Positive 2.
positive 2.
Whoa.
So this is X minus 4 and X plus 2. When I set them equal to 0,
Positive 4.
I get
Oh my God.
positive 4
Oh my God.
and negative 2.
Why did you teach us this?
Right, this is so much
Oh my God.
Okay.
How can we do that?
The problem is sometimes they're not pretty numbers. Sometimes you end up with a 1.77, 2.61. You can't factor that. Factoring only works when it lands on a whole number.
Crap.
Which is why they brought about the quadratic formula. However,
Why are they making
don't kill me here either.
How do we keep making these formulas?
Why are they making them anyway? This is already.
What am I
I
doing?
didn't know.
What am I
I
doing?
didn't know this. You're gonna finish math in 7th grade.
Okay, you ready for this?
Right.
We got another mind blown moment.
Crap. I don't need one of those. My mind can't take it.
So which way do you want us to do?
Oh, no.
Oh yeah, calculator.
I don't even know what I said.
I am.
Calculator.
Y equals, we had X squared
Oh, that's the.
Minus
my
2X.
God.
minus 2X
Minus 8.
minus 8
I'm doing this back.
calculate
That's so cool.
a 0 is your X-intercept.
Definitely is negative 2 and 4.
Okay. To the left of it, enter. To the right of it, enter. Back to it.
Wow.
That's crazy.
I'm definitely using that.
Okay. So this is the thing. While I'm teaching you all these methods, because we're going to do completing the square eventually too, hey, I'll give you the same exact answer. I don't care which way you use, but I have to introduce you to all of them.
That's stupid. I'm
You
sorry.
say introduce us to it and then like.
Because heaven forbid this is on the SAT and you don't have a calculator.
Oh.
You're going to have to do this by hand. You're not going to be able to graph it. You're not going to be able to use all that.
SAT,
you
you
got
have
it,
to
though.
use words now.
Oh my
Wait,
What,
so the
you-
box method and the calculator way are 2 different ways.
There are two different ways to do the same thing.
So-
This finds the x-intercepts. Factoring finds the x-intercepts. Quadratic formula finds the x-intercepts.
Okay, so what's that called? What's the equation called? This equation? It has to be y equals though, right?
Yes, or equal to 0
For you to find the x-intercepts of each of these
of
letters.
any of them. Okay, let's go do this one. Okay, so I'm already equal to 0. So now what is my A value? 3. My B value is? My C value is? -4.
Right.
If it's factorable. Not all equations are factorable.
But if it,
Mhm.
it's fine.
Okay, discriminant, again, is B squared minus 4AC. So we plug in 5 and square it. Minus 4 times 3 times -4. 73. Okay, this is why we use the quadratic formula. Can you take the square root of 73?
No.
It's not a perfect square. Okay, so this still means 2 real solutions. But now they're not going to be whole numbers. They're not going to be pretty. They're going to be decimals. Okay, so now I need to opposite B, which means my B value is now -5, plus or minus the square root of 73 divided by 2 times 3. Okay, so somebody find me the square root of 73. Let's round it to 2 decimals, so 8.54. So I've got -5 plus or minus 8.54 divided by 6. What is this?
Get out.
Rapido.
Safe and sober prom shirt.
Let me see.
Like, we're really gonna stay safe and sober.
Listen.
Okay.
No, she's not playing.
I don't even want to go to prom anymore. Oh, I'm really not going. Y'all think I'm lying.
Hey, I will throw this calculator
Okay.
across your head. Okay?
So now that we have this, we split into our two answers. -5 plus 8.54 divided by 6 and -5 minus 8.54 divided by 6. Okay, these aren't pretty, so you're going to have to use your calculator. Now, please be careful. You need to add before you divide. So you're going to put this top part in, hit enter, and then divide by 6.
You get 0.59.
0.59. -2.25.
I got 0.59.
Oh my lord.
Yeah, the first one. Oh, that was wrong.
You said -2.26.
I'm struggling.
It should round to 26 to run.
Oh. B. B.
The 6 rounds your 5 up to a 6.
He won't listen to me.
Is this round? Sorry, did you just call me?
I can play now.
Did you just say round? I like round. Put John on that round.
Okay.
You said get around to
2.256 round your 5
Get it
up.
with the calculator.
because it's repeating.
Yes.
But in middle school, I don't remember what you said it, but one of my masters said that if it's a decimal repeat, like you know how it's 5, 6,
2.56, and you should put the line over top of the 6.
But y'all,
yeah, but since it had that 7, it was like you can just put -2.27.
Okay. Is this one set equal to
Yes.
0? Yes. So what is my A value?
1,
What is my B value?
6,
What is my C value?
9.
Okay. So discriminant. B squared. So 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9.
Get 0.
You get 0, which means what?
1.
One real solution. Okay, my quadratic formula says change the sign of my B value. So B is now -6 plus or minus the square root of 0 divided by 2 times 1. What's the square root of 0?
0.
0. So this is -6 plus or minus 0 divided by 2.
3.
So when I split this up, watch what happens. -6 plus 0 divided by 2. -6 minus 0 divided by 2. Both of them come out to be -3.
So this is probably like the easiest one to do.
Because when you add or subtract 0, it does nothing to my 6. This is why when you get a discriminant of 0, you only have one answer.
I thought this was the easiest.
Oh, yeah.
One solution.
Probably.
Okay.
I think the calculator
You may see questions on your test that like says, using this quadratic equation, what would the quadratic formula look like? And you might have to like identify that this is the answer.
So that's how they'll say it. They'll say
Like
quadratic
something like that. But if it just says solve this quadratic, I don't care if you graph it. I don't care if you factor it. I don't care if you have quadratic formula. I don't care if you complete the square. Either way, solving is finding the x-intercepts And all of these ways do that.
Yeah.
I don't care. I do not care. Okay. I will show you everything, but it's going to be up to you. Okay. This one said equal to 0. So what is A?
2.
What is B?
-3.
What is C?
5.
Okay. So we've got -3 squared minus 4 times 2 times 5. You said -31? No real solutions, but we have 2 imaginary. Okay, so this is the one where you're going to have that I again. Okay, so my B becomes positive when I plug it into the quadratic formula, plus or minus the square root of -31 all over 2 times 2. We're not there yet. Hold on. Okay, so 3 plus or minus. To get rid of that negative underneath the square root, it becomes I, and you keep your square root of 31 all over 4. Okay, sometimes they're just going to leave your answer like this. Sometimes they will split it up into your 2 answers. Okay, just know that it means the same thing. Whoops, not 2, 4. Just know that it means the same thing, whether they leave it as plus or minus, or if they split it up into 2. Okay.
I got a question. So you can't do this with the calculator, right?
No. Now you can do it with the calculator if you're just trying to figure out, do I have 2 imaginary? But it won't give you this. Okay.
This is the only way you can do it.
This is the only way you can actually get the answers, is to use the quadratic formula when you have imaginary
Wait,
solutions.
so on the test it'd be this method, like it'd be that.
It may be this, where it has just plus and minus, or they may break it into both. I don't know which way it's going to go. Okay. Questions? Okay. What I want you to do, okay, what I want you to do, your whiteboard, okay, it breaks it all down into here. Okay, I want you to do this last foldable. There are 3 examples. Please make sure that they're set equal to 0. Okay, use your quadratic formula. Practice that. Okay, if you want to then bring it to me, I will gladly check your answers. Okay, and I'll give you the homework assignment.
Is this
We're not going to do IXL today. This took a little bit longer than I expected, and that's okay because we had some really good discussions today. Okay, I like the fact that you guys are making connections.
Definitely.
Believe it or not, making those connections will help you in the future. So as much as it may stress you all out, it will actually help.
87, right?
Yes, this one goes in, the one that we just finished goes in on 87. This one, when you're finished, will go in on 88.
Okay, can I go try to take these